Hello guys. Destructuring or destructuring assignment is something quite common in modern JavaScript. There are different syntaxes for doing destructuring depending on the use case. So as a JavaScript developer, you need to understand how destructuring is done so you can understand other people's code and as well as be able to use destructuring when writing your JavaScript. What I have on the screen is just an array, and I am trying to access the first and second item using the index, which is something I believe everyone knows. Then this print is just a helper function I created down here. It has nothing to do with the destructuring topic, so I can display my result on the screen. So for K and L, I have A and B. First example. Let's use the destructuring syntax to get the first and second item in this array. So I can remove these guys, don't need them anymore. We basically put a bracket, square bracket here, just array sort of bracket, because we are dealing with array. And then the first item here will be mapped to the first item in the array. The second item will be mapped to the second item. You can name this anything you want, it doesn't matter. So you are free to assign those values to whatever you choose as the name. If I head over to the browser and refresh the page, you can see that we get the same result like before. Another destructuring syntax is when you have the number of variables here less than the number of items in the array, but somehow you still want whatever that is remainder after mapping. That is, X will still point to A, Y will point to B. What happens to the rest of items in the array? We can store all of them in one variable using this syntax by putting the 3 dots. This can be called anything, so it is not compulsory for you to call it rest. If I save this and we check X and Y, you can see that we still get A and B. Then we check rest. That will give us every other thing except the mapped items. If I refresh, you can see that is the rest of items here. Another thing we can do is to skip some value. For example, let's say that we want the first item but not the second item, and then we want the third item. We can just put a comma without any parameter here, and that index will be skipped. So in this case, we are grabbing the first item, which is A. We put comma and put nothing there. Then we jump and put another comma. In this case, this is going to be jumped, right? And then we move to the third item. The space is not really required, so you can remove the spaces if you want to. If I refresh the page, you can see that we are getting A and C, jumping one item, which is the item here. Of course, you can jump more than one item. Let me put double comma there. If I refresh, you can see that we are getting D. Now let's see how to assign default values. I have this time I am not using this array. So I have this array called address that has only 2 items, but down here we are trying to access 3 items. That means city will be mapped to this, country will be mapped to this, continent will be mapped to, well, nothing, because we don't have any other item here. It means that continent is going to be undefined when we try to access it. So continent is undefined. But we can assign default value to any of these or all of them if we wish to, right? When we assign a default value, that default value will only be used if there is no matching item here. So for city, it doesn't matter whether we assign a default value because it's always going to be mapped to this. For country that is assigned Europe, it will always be this, Nigeria, because there is a value for it. But for continent, let's say we assign a value Asia. Now, because there's nothing that continent is mapped to in this array, the default value Asia will be used. Save that and refresh the page. You can see that we get the default value. So far, we've been assigning the destructured values to simple variables like city, country, but we can actually assign this to anything we wish to. For example, I have an object called alphabet, so I can assign the property called first and another property called second of that object to the destructured value of this array. So in that case, this will be mapped to A and this will be mapped to B, just like before. The only difference is that this time they are object properties that we are assigning them to. If I refresh the page, I'm getting only B, of course, because I'm printing only the second item. If I print the first item, you can see that we get A in that case. The next thing we are going to look at is how to swap values. Guys, please hit the like button and subscribe or follow if you have not done so. Thank you. So we can use destructuring as a simple trick to swap values that are assigned to our variables. This is what this can look like. Here I have first name, I have last name, but I can swap what is stored in first name and last name, right? So here I'll say last name to be equal to first name and first name to be equal to last name. It is as simple as that. So if I print this, first name is going to be Doe instead of John, and last name is going to be John instead of Doe. Save that and print it. We have Doe John instead of John Doe. Alright guys, so far we've covered a number of things about array destructuring. Let's take a look at object destructuring in another video.